This man works as a bricklayer, living a quiet life. One day, he arrives at a construction site to repair a damaged wall.
Can I help you?
I'm the bricklayer.
After taking a lunch break, he returns later that night to finish the job, but without warning, he is suddenly shot in the stomach. He carries no conventional weapons, only his work tools, yet he uses them with deadly precision, attacking the men with skills far beyond those of a simple construction worker. His name is Steve Vale, and it becomes clear that he is not who he seems. Steve is a former CIA field agent and one of the agency's best operatives. The scene then traces back to a meeting between Greek reporter Greta Becker and a man named Victor Radic, a former CIA agent turned assassin. Inside a hotel room, Greta prepares to expose illegal U.S. intelligence operations overseas. Radic presents her with photos and classified files, evidence powerful enough to damage the United States if made public. He allows her to photograph the material, gaining her trust, but without warning.
Have you called me? You want the story out there?
I do. But unfortunately for you, I want to be the one to do the telling.
Soon after, news of her death spreads, and the media begins to suspect that the CIA is eliminating journalists who attempt to uncover its secrets. Greek Foreign Affairs Minister Kostas Leontaris publicly vows to put an end to CIA operations across Europe. At CIA headquarters, a desk agent named Kate Bannon investigates Greta's murder. Late at night, she carefully reviews CCTV footage from around the hotel and notices a suspicious figure moving behind a group of people taking photos. She tracks down one of those images and zooms in, recognizing the man in the background as Victor Radic. Realizing the importance of this discovery, she brings it to CIA Director O'Malley.
What am I looking at?
Security footage from the Thessaloniki train station 2 days ago.
Victor Radic.
Have you told Thessaloniki?
I haven't told anyone.
What do you know about him?
Most of his file was redacted. Civilian born in Greece, but grew up all over. Died 18 months ago.
They never found his body.
He was a covert CIA operative working as an intermediary between the Greek and Russian mafias.
Then reveals that Radic's handler during his time in the field was Steve Vale. Soon after, Kate and O'Malley meet Steve at a diner in Philadelphia. They explain that someone is attempting to blackmail the CIA using a series of murders along with sensitive intelligence, and all evidence points to Radic. Steve is stunned because he personally witnessed Radic's death years ago. The two men were once close friends, which is why O'Malley wants Steve to work with Kate to track him down. The mission would be off the books since they do not know who inside the agency can be trusted, and Steve would be given his own team.
We need to bring him in. That's why I want you to go to Greece with her.
What? Sir,
I can brief someone else, someone with more experience.
sir, I really think that you should reconsider sending someone a little bit more credentialed.
I agree. She wouldn't last 24 hours on the ground.
I was talking about you.
Enough.
Steve refuses. O'Malley warns him that he could become the next target, but Steve has already made up his mind and walks away. Not long after that meeting, he is attacked by the hitmen on the rooftop we see at first. During a brutal fight in the rain, Steve manages to overpower one of the attackers by wrapping a tape measure around his neck and choking him before finishing him off with a gun. However, the danger is not over yet, as a final hitman is still hunting him. Steve ambushes this last attacker on the rooftop, using a trowel to stab him repeatedly. The struggle becomes intense, and both men end up hanging over the edge of the building. Before falling, the hitman reveals that Radic sent them. He crashes onto a lift below. As the lift begins to give way, Steve straps the man to the rails and barely escapes before it collapses. Now determined to uncover the truth, Steve decides to accept the mission and track down Radic. He arrives at a hangar carrying a simple bag filled with his work tools, refusing to go anywhere without them. Kate is already there, preparing for what will be her first field assignment. Steve immediately doubts her, believing she will only slow him down. He offers to handle the mission alone and let her take all the credit, but Kate refuses, determined to prove herself. Her confidence shows, but Steve warns her that this job is nothing like what she expects. As she begins going over mission details, Steve simply ignores it and falls asleep before the flight even begins. Later, during the flight, Kate reviews Radic's file and learns that Steve was the one assigned to kill him years ago. She comes across photos of Radic with his wife and daughter, followed by another image showing them dead in a field. The sight unsettles her, and she looks towards Steve, silently wondering if he had anything to do with their deaths. By nightfall, they land in Greece and collect a car from the hangar. Instead of heading to their assigned destination, Steve redirects them to an abandoned warehouse, where he meets an old contact named Patricio, a former CIA outfitter who now deals in weapons. Kate is immediately frustrated when she sees Steve hand over a bag of pills, accusing him of using CIA resources to transport drugs. Patricio quickly clears the misunderstanding, explaining that the pills are cancer medication for his dog. Kate brings up protocol again, pointing out that this stop was never authorized, but Steve reminds her that they came to him for help, and this is how he operates. Patricio provides them with high-end clothing to establish a new cover identity. Steve decides they will pose as a wealthy shipping magnate and his wife. Along with the outfits, they are given weapons and a reinforced Mercedes AMG.
Mercedes CLS AMG, V8 bi-turbo engine, boarded out to 7.2 liters, adding 550 horsepower. Beefed up brakes and suspension, reinforced the front and rear fascia. Added auxiliary fuel tank and radar detector. There's no Amex.
With everything prepared, they drive into the city of Thessaloniki and check into a hotel. Steve then casually suggests that Kate get ready for their next move. However, when she steps out of the shower, she realizes that Steve has already disappeared without a word. Steve makes his way to a cathedral, a place he once used with Radic as a drop point. As he walks through it, memories surface of a time when he stood on a beach with Radic and his family. Back then, Radic gave him a Midland record as a gift, and in return, Steve had arranged a new home in Montana for Radic's family once he retired. Returning to the present, Steve hides a cell phone inside the cathedral before quietly leaving. The next day, Steve once again leaves Kate behind and heads to a high-profile event. There, he meets Ty Delson, his former lover, who now serves as the CIA station chief in Thessaloniki. She reminds him that local authorities are still looking for him because of an incident from years ago. When she learns that he is hunting Radic, she is surprised.
Radic is dead.
Not anymore.
Steve explains that the agency believes Radic is behind the recent blackmail, and he needs her help to locate a man named Sten. Back when Steve and Radic worked in the field, they used to pay Sten for information, but now he has grown into a powerful gangster who runs an exclusive club. Steve goes to the club and finds Sten surrounded by chicks and heavily guarded by bodyguards. Without wasting time, Steve confronts him directly and asks about Radic.
I'm looking for Radic.
Radic's dead.
Sure. Business looks good. Too good for you to be doing this all alone. There's got to be a partner somewhere behind those velvet ropes.
I told you what you already know. He's dead. Not some small-time punk you can just push around anymore. I'm a respected businessman. My word means something.
Sten suggests that Steve relax and enjoy a drink, and Steve appears to agree, but in the next moment he launches into action. Just in time, Kate arrives with the car and picks him up. She is angry that he keeps leaving her behind, but Steve insists he is trying to protect her. He reveals that he already found the tracking device she planted on him and used it to his advantage. He asks for her phone and explains that he placed the same tracker on Sten, expecting that it would lead them straight to Radic. Kate refuses to continue helping unless Steve tells her the truth about Radic. According to official files, Radic simply went rogue, but she wants to know what really happened.
Radic was a go-between with the Greek and Russian mafia. In reality, he was performing assignments for us. He joined the CIA to get asylum for his wife and daughter, but his cover got blown and the Russians killed his family. Radic became unhinged, slaughtering Russians all over Greece, anyone he thought was involved. I was asked to track him down and neutralize him. I thought I did.
Sometime later, the CIA suffers a major cyber attack. A disguised voice demands $100 million in cryptocurrency, threatening to release classified information that would expose illegal US operations around the world if the payment is not made. Using the tracker, Steve follows Sten back to his residence. He and Kate wait until Sten leaves before breaking inside, searching for anything that could connect him to Radic. While Kate checks his laptop, she finds a map pointing to Emporio Square in the city. At the same time, Steve uses his bricklaying skills to inspect the walls and discovers a hidden compartment. Inside, they find Greta's phone along with clues suggesting that Radic's next target could be another journalist named Alikos Melas. Just as they process this, After the fight, both Steve and Kate sit down, trying to recover. Kate explains that she sneezed because Sten must have a dog and she is allergic. But what truly bothers her is that despite hundreds of hours of training, she froze when it mattered. Steve reassures her that this reaction is normal, and that, over time, she will become used to situations like this. Shortly after, Steve receives a message from Patricio, informing them that Alekos will be at Emporio Square. Later, Steve, Kate, and Patricio position themselves at Emporio Square, keeping Alekos Melas under watch as he waits nervously for someone to arrive. In the middle of this, Steve receives a call on the phone he had hidden earlier in the cathedral, and the caller is Radic. During their conversation, it becomes clear that years ago, Steve had allowed Radic to escape instead of killing him, hoping he would disappear for good. However, Radic could not let things go without finding out who exposed him. As they speak, the connection between Steve and Kate cuts off, and in the growing chaos caused by a group of protesters entering the square, Steve loses sight of her. Scanning the crowd, Steve eventually spots Radic and starts moving toward him. Radic continues speaking, revealing that it was the CIA who exposed his cover and he believes Steve may have been involved. As a result, he arranged for the hitmen to attack Steve earlier. Steve refuses to believe that the agency would betray one of their own, but Radic insists it happened because he failed to complete a past assignment. He warns Steve to stay out of his way, not only for his own sake, but also for Kate's safety. Steve finally catches up to the figure he has been chasing, only to realize it is a decoy. At that same moment, the real Radic carries out his plan and assassinates Alekos. He escapes on a motorcycle, and Steve fires at the tires, causing the bike to crash. Despite that, Radic manages to disappear once again. At the scene, they recover a damaged tablet from the bike, and Patricio says he can try to access its data. Kate, frustrated and upset, blames Steve for Alekos' death, arguing that his actions and disregard for protocol led to this outcome. Steve brushes it off, focusing only on the next step, as Radic has left behind a photo pointing to his next target, someone already on the CIA watch list. Steve begins to suspect that Director O'Malley knows more than he is saying, and may even be using them to cover up the CIA's involvement, which makes him consider the possibility that O'Malley himself could be the one leaking information to Radic. He warns Kate not to trust anyone, but she pushes back, reminding him that he secretly met with Ty, calling him out for being a hypocrite. And when O'Malley calls, Kate ignores Steve's warning and answers anyway. Steve then goes to Ty's apartment. She confirms that the CIA did expose Radic's cover, describing it as a necessary decision after he failed to complete an assignment. According to her, the agency felt betrayed by him. Steve shifts the conversation to something more personal, confronting her about how she left him years ago.
You and I were supposed to get out.
Please.
Why didn't you come?
I was scared. This life and all the death that comes with it. When O'Malley called and offered me the job, it may have been the wrong choice, but I have to live with it.
Through a flashback, it is revealed that the CIA had ordered Radic to assassinate a politician, but he was hesitant to go through with it. Steve warned him that refusing the order would cost his life, yet Radic saw it as a chance to escape that life. Steve could not abandon his duty, but he promised to make sure Radic's family would be safe. In the present, Steve spends the night at Ty's place, where she tells him that her team has traced the origin of the ransom video. Steve mentions that Patricio is working on Radic's tablet, which clearly concerns her.
Patricio couldn't find flies on a horse's ass. I need that tablet. My career is on the line.
He decides to check the location connected to the video himself, despite Ty urging him to let her handle it. For Steve, this is personal, and even though he failed to save Radic's family, he still believes he might be able to save him. When Steve returns, Kate tells him she did not share anything with O'Malley. She now believes Radic is not acting for money, which means he must be working for someone else. Suddenly,
So I went through your bag and I found a receipt for 2 burner phones. 1 incoming call. I guess that's Radic. You never killed him. Maybe you let him go.
I am in contact with Radic, but not for the reasons you think.
Steve then heads to Patricio's place, and the moment he notices the dog left alone outside, he realizes something is wrong. He and Kate move in carefully with their weapons ready, only to discover that Patricio has been brutally tortured and killed. His body has been rigged with an explosive. Before they can react further, Sten and his armed men arrive, having learned that Steve is there.
Kate, get down.
Wait! Back off!
Suddenly, multiple laser sights appear on his chest. Sten steps forward, revealing that he has Kate under his control. Steve offers himself in exchange for her life, and Sten agrees. Kate refuses to leave him behind, but Steve insists that she go, promising that he will meet her back at the hotel. Knowing they will both die if she stays, she reluctantly leaves, holding back tears.
I'm somebody now.
Yeah.
Not long after, Kate sees Steve again and is relieved that he survived. Steve then reveals that the politician Radic once refused to assassinate was Costas Leonteris. However, after everything that has happened, especially Patricio's death, Steve now believes Radic has gone too far and must be stopped for good. Around the same time, Kate receives word from O'Malley that the CIA has agreed to pay the ransom. Steve sees this as the perfect opportunity to set a trap. Meanwhile, Costas publicly announces the termination of CIA operations in Greece as he pushes to connect the agency to the recent killings. Steve and Kate meet with O'Malley and Ty, where they learn that Radic has specifically requested Kate to deliver the ransom. Because of Steve's actions and the trouble caused with local authorities, O'Malley removes him from the mission.
O'Malley, he might be the dumbest son of a bitch to ever cash a government paycheck. And that's saying something.
Kate is given a flash drive containing the $100 million in cryptocurrency and is reassured that the agency will be monitoring everything. Following Radic's instructions, Kate boards a train and later gets off at a specific location where she finds a hidden phone. Using a photo stored on it, she identifies a nearby tavern as the meeting point for the exchange. She enters the tavern and makes her way toward a back room, staying alert. Just as she is about to proceed, Steve suddenly appears from behind. Without wasting time, he takes the flash drive from her, making it clear that he will handle the exchange himself. Kate silently accepts this and leaves. Steve enters the room with his gun ready, but instead of Radic, he finds only a laptop sitting on a table. He connects the flash drive, and as the transfer begins, Radic appears on a video call. Radic tells him that if Steve had stayed out of this, Patricio would still be alive. Steve responds that he will hunt him down no matter what. Radic, however, says he is no longer planning to run. He is tired, but before everything ends, he intends to complete one final mission by killing Costas. Steve warns him that assassinating Costas would trigger a major conflict, but Radic does not care, as he refuses to keep suffering alone. Once the transfer is complete, Radic ends the call. Immediately after, the door to the room locks, and Steve realizes there is a bomb placed under the table. Thinking quickly, he turns the device toward a wall and takes cover as it explodes. He barely survives the blast and makes it outside, where Radic suddenly tries to run him over with a van. At that moment, Kate arrives in the Mercedes, and Steve jumps into the driver's seat as they begin chasing Radic. They manage to catch up, and Kate tries to shoot out the van's tires, but misses. Radic briefly escapes, but Steve cuts him off by driving through a wall and crashing into the van, flipping it over. Emergency services arrive shortly after, and while Kate is checked for injuries, Steve searches for Radic. However, by the time he looks, Radic has already disappeared once again. Not far from there, Costas is addressing a large public crowd. Steve arrives and begins scanning the area carefully until he spots Radic positioned on an elevated platform behind what appears to be a camera, but is actually a concealed rifle. Radic prepares to take the shot just as Costas is about to reveal his findings about the CIA. Acting quickly, Steve grabs a sledgehammer and strikes the platform, causing it to collapse and throwing Radic off balance, making him miss. Radic tries to recover and reach for a weapon, but Steve disables him by smashing his hand before holding him at gunpoint. In that moment, Steve apologizes, admitting that he failed to protect Radic's family. As Radic reaches into his jacket, Steve reacts and shoots him, believing he is going for a weapon. Only afterward does it become clear that Radic was pulling out a photograph of Steve with his family before everything went wrong. Soon after, Greek police arrive and shoot Steve. Sometime later, he regains consciousness in a hotel room where O'Malley and Kate are present. O'Malley explains that they managed to recover Radic's fake manifesto along with his list of targets before authorities could access them. However, the $100 million is missing, which O'Malley dismisses as expendable. Before leaving, he asks Steve why he chose to become a bricklayer, and Steve simply answers that it is something he understands and that it brings him peace. After O'Malley leaves, Kate admits she cannot ignore the missing money and suspects that O'Malley might have taken it, but Steve chooses not to pursue it, believing some enemies are impossible to fight. The two then part ways. Later that night, Ty prepares to leave the country. Steve arrives to see her, acting as if he just wants to spend some time together. As he looks around, he notices a Midland record, the same kind Radic once gave him. This detail makes him realize the truth, that Ty was secretly working with Radic and is the one who took the money.
Why don't you come with me? Get out for good this time.
You sent me to die. I think your Uber is here.
You're not here for me.
So you, Radic.
He came to me. I'm not the same person anymore. Goodbye, Vale.
The blast throws Steve onto the street below, where Ty attempts to run him over with her car. Just then, Kate arrives and shoots Ty, causing her to lose control and crash, killing her. In the end, Kate turns down a promotion offered by O'Malley, realizing that this life is not for her.
I can't believe you thought I was dirty. I may be a prick, but I'm a patriot.
Steve returns to his work as a bricklayer, choosing a life that is simple, steady, and finally gives him a sense of peace. That brings us to the end of this recap of The Bricklayer from 2023. If you were in Steve's place, would you have trusted Radic or taken him down the same way? Drop your answer in the comments.